I would advise not trying to have a favorite position, a favorite place to play, a favorite type of submission. Instead, like, constantly evaluate your game, especially once you get a blue belt. Because a white belt, learn the lay of the land, learn what can happen. Blue belts start really working hard on like being unpinnable, just like get out of everything. And if you can do all of that, then you can play the game, right? Like, I can make a mistake going for a submission. If they can't hold me down, then I can work myself back into a position. I can try again. You're afraid to make a mistake if that mistake is like final. If I screw up and I get underneath this person, then I'm going to spend the rest of the round or the rest of my life underneath this person. And that makes you do, that messes you up. It messes you up mentally. It makes you avoid certain things and not try certain things. So evaluate your takedowns, your attacks from the top. So when you're in like a dominant position, your attack from the top. Your guard passing. That's the other piece from the top. Your attacks from the bottom. So like that would be situations where you got a guard, and then your escapes. When your escapes would be getting to the top or getting to a guard. But you've got escapes and attacks from the bottom. Escapes, which is passes, and attacks from the top, and then your takedowns. And like write them all down and number them 1 through 5. Like 5 being your best and 1 being your worst. And then whatever's 1, put your focus on that until it's your best. And as soon as you can flip it and make it your best, do another reevaluation. And maybe it doesn't happen like sequentially, because as you're practicing one thing, other stuff is still going to develop, because we're still going to do stuff in class. But don't just like get better at your favorite things. Don't just like, certainly do that, but don't just do that, because you'll get like a little bit better. Like if you can bench press 200 pounds, and it's a big jump for you to make 205 pounds, like you'll be 5 pounds stronger, but will it produce like that big of a change in your power output versus increasing a lift this week, like focus on your squat, or you know what I mean? If your top stuff is good and you get put on your back, then you're like a white belt again, right? So make sure your bottom stuff is good. Like if you start on your feet and somebody takes you down and puts you in a bad position, it's no good. So it's neat to be able to win the takedown, so you start the match where you want to.
On the 5 components, each of those has further ways you can break it down. So if you look at like escapes or attacks, so you side versus guard versus top, there's how would you, I guess in your evaluation process, is like, man, I can hit attacks from the bottom if they're in my guard. Mm-hmm. But if I'm in some other positions, my attacks suck. So how do you kind of balance out rating the big categories when you have the smaller positional ones within?
You'll recognize the smaller positional ones with practice. So like for me, my regular guard, my closed guard stuff is what it is. My butterfly guard stuff is what it is. And maybe I want to play with butterfly guard a little more because I find myself there. But like my half guard stuff is just not as developed. I've got a few things I can do. So maybe I should go focus on that. But the mentality of like just bringing up the rear constantly, just always figure out like what you're not good at. And like what would make sense for me in that case is like, all right, make it where people hate getting in my half guard. Oh, they fight like crazy to stay away from my half guard because it's so dangerous. And that's a good mentality to get. So Tokui-waza, have them, but don't hang on to them too long.